Welcome back. We are discussing women in combat gear and in conflict zones. AVM Sidhu, what is the situation? I mean, are there some European air forces where the women actually fly fighter aircraft and in combat zones?
There are many, including US. They fly fighter aircraft per se, but they are in the training role. And if they can fill up those cockpit vacancies where men would be required, and they train a lot of young people on fighters, they're performing an excellent job. But they're not necessarily required to fly fighter aircraft in combat zones, in combat roles, because they haven't been found efficient enough. And some of the air forces like Dutch Air Force and Belgians, who in the NATO scenario are not expected to really be exposed to combat.
But AVM Sidhu, what is the situation in the Navy? Somehow the Navy hasn't figured in the ongoing court case.
Navy has been very sharp and smart.
Okay.
And they have women officers, but they have said we will not give them permanent commission and not in combat roles. And they don't post women officers to ships, and definitely not to submarines. The reason being, obviously, what we discussed earlier, similar to the Air Force. Recently, they have no pilots in the Navy, but they trained 4 women as observers, and they put them on Dorniers on aerial recce roles. And they said this is a combat role.
But why are they not putting them on the ships? Because if the US Navy can actually have women commanding ships, why not in India?
Well, I'd say it would be, as we discussed, some of our cultural biases because of the men, the nature from they come on, the limitations on the use of personal toilets on ships. They're limited. There are limitations on those
administrative and logistical
issues. Not necessarily, because the Navy is very high tech and they can be employed very well in those roles on the ships.
Right. Jal Sandhu, talking of at another plane, since the induction of women in the army, have there been more problems of discipline or management?
Before that, can I just add to what? You see, when we take the example of countries like America or other Western countries, I don't think they are very apt examples. An American man by nature also is more of that male chauvinism and things. And therefore, they are also carrying on changing their situations and having a review of whether women should be used in combat role or this role or that role.
I think that's for different reasons. I think there have been allegations of various kinds.
That's true. That's true. Allegations will always come,
right.
And things will go wrong. Let's accept that. But that is not a rule. It's an odd exception takes place. But I think,
but problems
what we are discussing now, when we say no in India,
right,
I think it's more a resistance to change. We don't want to try. We talk of men being from the rural area, how will a lady command, because the men are more crude. But the men are also more protective of women. Let's accept that the Indian male by nature, he is very protective as far as ladies are concerned.
But do you think soldiers, particularly in the infantry, would be willing to take orders from women officers or even commanding officers? Why I ask is because the government in the court has actually stated that most GSOs and the other ranks come from rural areas, and they might find it difficult to accept women as leaders.
I don't agree with that. It may sound partly true,
right?
But you give it a try. How can you take a decision like this without giving it a try? There are so many useless officers, touch wood, who are also leading men. They're leading men into battle also. So why will a lady not be able to lead? If a lady proves herself, she will. What is happening in the Israeli army? Sorry for falling back to the Israeli example always. They are commanding units. And also when we are talking of the Indian army, let's not talk of a young lady, joined as a lieutenant or a captain. Look at it at the future. Someday she is also going to be got a regular commission. She is looking at command. So it's not just a question of her being accepted today. In that role, she has to find acceptance right up to higher ranks.
But going back to the initial question, has it with the induction of more women, have there been more problems of discipline?
I don't think so.
No.
How many cases of discipline have come up with women? Very few. both by women or against women. Very few. That's a false this thing. Yes, management. You have to look at it slightly differently. After all, it's a different sex. You have to cater for the physiological needs. You have to cater for their, little bit more respect for them. Possibly, while I, as a youngster, had to earn my own self-respect and come into high esteem in the eyes of the men. In the case of the lady, we may have to give an initial push.
Right.
And that,
So
that sort of thing
I'd
may
like
be there.
to sort of,
Yes.
what is, please define the need to have women in combat roles when they can do something better just to prove a point, just to prove a
No,
gender
not just
equality.
to a point,
not prove a
AVM Sidhu, maybe if they are willing to serve there, how can you
No,
deny
what
them
is
that
the
role?
need? The armed forces are not necessarily a job employment agency for women to produce gender equality. It has got a task, its aim. We got to be combat efficient always and every time.
No, but
the best person at the best weapon to do the task. Is a woman the best person?
No, but as
To do a
Jan
combat
Sandhu
role.
said,
How
if
can
they
you
are,
deny
if they
a
are
person?
volunteering, if
There's
they are,
no denying.
if they are willing to serve, if they are as good as the men, how can you deny them that?
They're willing to serve, yes. We don't doubt a women's dedication or loyalty to the nation. No one does that. Willing to serve, yes. But as good as a male, they don't do BBET in the army. They are required to jump 5 feet when the men are required to jump 8 feet.
Okay.
They don't carry 65 pounds even on exercises, on marches.
No, that's
in
not
non-combat areas.
That's not
because
correct.
Some very
physically,
valid
no,
statistics
this is a
that
fact.
AVM
No,
Sidhu is
I don't
quoting,
agree
Jan
with
Sandhu.
those statistics. I don't agree.
I have a
They are doing BPET
Okay.
in the army.
Not with the men, not with the men at all. The officers are expected to run at the same time with them. The women are not.
No.
They are not.
No, maybe Jack Branch and
That's
all no.
true.
But
Here's
the
a lady
people in
officer.
signals, the
Okay.
people, I've commanded a division. And they've been running, and when you went somewhere and there was a BPET test laid out for you, and you saw the women were very much part of
Okay.
it.
In the regiment or the
Yes.
unit
Yes.
level, yes,
Yes.
they run with the men. Considering I am a Jack Branch officer, we run with the officers.
Okay.
But we do run. That is not that we don't do. Yes, because of our different physical abilities, we have been given a lenient or maybe a leeway.
But you are also running with men. You are running with officers.
So we are, but at the
It's
same
not that
point
you are
of
being
time,
separate test is being conducted for you.
I would say that the military is not a place for experimentation in combat arms. That I still
but,
say.
Okay,
Captain
so
Jasprit,
I'll give you the facts and figures.
Okay.
A man is expected to run those 5 kilometers in 28 minutes, a woman in 40 minutes. She may be running along with them if some general wants to see them.
Oh, that's not
But
so.
not though. These are the
Well,
these
that's
are
not-
the
that's
figures.
not
a very
in
that's
the
not a
army.
very
I'm
fair
taking them
comparison.
off.
No,
AVM
no,
Sidhu.
and this is not so also.
No, but
Even in the Olympics, you have
Yeah,
you
so
know,
okay.
Even
so
male
why
officers-
doesn't
Events for
Serena
men and women.
Williams compete with Roger Federer? Because they are different. And because they are different, we are not saying they necessarily have to do this as men, equally good, at the same place, at the same time. What is the need?
Okay, let's talk at a different plane. Captain Jasprit, tell me, have cases of indiscipline gone up with the induction of more women?
No, sir, I don't think so. Considering that I'm a Jack Branch officer, we deal with all these cases of insubordination, indiscipline. No. As such, female cases? No, nothing like that. Females figure at a very minor minority in the army. And if you compare with the male officers, if that is the case, then what about the male officers? They rank very higher. The cases is maximum there only. It's hardly one odd case. There I will not agree.
But what is your sense? I mean, should you allow women as ORs and even JCOs? I mean, if you have CRPF battalions only of women, why not in the army?
So CRPF, BSF, they are police forces.
Okay.
They are totally different than the military. They are
But
deployed.
very often military is being deployed in aid of civil power, so at least they
No,
could
but
be,
Sir,
may I
they
add
could be
something
deployed
there?
there.
Sir, if I may finish.
Yeah, please.
If the police forces are there at the peacetime, the moment a war breaks out, the military takes over. There also the women who are in CRPF, they will come back. You will not be telling them to go to the border and fight a war. There the difference is there.
Okay. Yes,
No,
Jan Sandhu,
the
you
point I
would
was
say
making is, I would also not agree with JCO's ORs at level for the women at the moment. See, we are a different sort of cultural this thing, and we are already finding it, like we were discussing, a problem to get in the officer level this thing. So once you resolve that, once the officers are accepted at all levels and in all arms, then we can think of the next level. But as of today, I feel we should restrict it only at the officer level.
AVM Sidhu, what about the Air Force? Do you think time has come to open the other ranks to women? I mean, since the Air Force is a more forward-looking
Not at all.
force.
Not
as
at
you
all. Our cultural limitations, our physical quality of living is not appropriate. They live in barracks. Like I said, they share common toilets. Segregation that will have to be done, it doesn't warrant the amount of effort that will have to be put in. When not required, you see, let's face it, why were women inducted into the armed forces? To fill in vacancies that were not being filled in despite the efforts, and the people who were wanting to fill them in were not the quality the armed forces wanted them. So you use them, and they were good at what they were expected to fill. We have enough number of people wanting to join, unlike some of the Western countries, our PBO, our areas. There are riots. You can choose the best. So what is the need? I mean, you see, when we talk of this issue, I think it becomes more emotional than required. Look at the aim. What is the purpose of the armed forces? How must they be staffed? What are they required to do? And then by all means choose them. I mean, just because this has got to be a gender equality basis and women's liberations, etc. This is, armed forces are not the place to try them out, test them out. There are other areas, police forces, as the lady said very rightly, I do agree with her. You are required to deal with ladies in awkward situations, as one might say, to be politically correct, and therefore there must be adequate number of ladies.
No, why not? Why not with the armed forces? Why not give them a try? I am all for combat arms, basically for this reason, that it is my belief that ladies will perform as well, if not better, than some of the officers.
Okay, so
even in leading men. Even in leading men. Because you see, our men.
Okay, Jal Sandhu, before we close, just on a lighter note, in the army we have something called the AWA, the Army Wives Welfare Association. Now this is to basically take care of the wives and the families. Now with more women coming into the army, do you think there will be a time when we'll have something called the Army Husbands Welfare Association to look after the men?
No, firstly, the women officers' husbands won't be sitting idle. They'll be working on their own and possibly in a better job maybe than the wife.
Okay.
But that aside, the Army Wives Welfare Association is not looking after just the families, the wives and families. They are meant for assisting command in looking after the welfare of troops primarily, which includes the man and his family. So it is not just this, and they are okay. I have my reservations on that, but that is for another debate, not today.
Right. Okay, but AVM Sidhu, I think you want to say something?
Yes, I do. Women can, I'll quickly sum it up, be employed in combat roles in a high-tech battlefield of the future, a virtual battlefield. Today in the US, based in Langley, Virginia, they control RPVs which take off from UAE and operate in the frontier, northwest frontier, for 6 hours on patrol and use Hellfire missiles to take out the most valuable targets, and if they miss them, the collateral damage is of a nature that plays up politically globally, and that's a combat role. Somebody has got to do it, and the ladies are doing it.
So as we go more high tech, maybe the women also will have a greater role.
Women will have a greater role where they will be suitably utilized, and the physiological limitations will not come to the fore.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us in the discussion. Though women are rubbing shoulders with men in most jobs today, there are still reservations on their being made to serve in the combat arms of the army and to fly fighter jets in conflict zones. One awaits the mind of the country's Supreme Court, where this matter is being discussed. That is all in Defence Line today. Do write your feedback. Good luck and goodbye.